All right, Sam, we are back for another episode of the So Damn Lucky podcast. And this episode is super exciting because the boys are back.
Boys are back in town.
Boys are back in town. Get your hands up, raise them high because they performed at the Jazz Band Festival, and it's just so amazing to see the band back just performing, you know, seeing sets now that we're like looking at sets, and we're going to dive into what this performance was, just overall the excitement of the fact that the tour is just starting.
Exactly. And what other better place than in Louisiana, obviously known for its jazz festival. And there were some really interesting things that we're going to dive into about the show, but we're not going to be going about sets and looking at it in a different landscape and a different scope because we're doing this podcast. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, so it's going to be great to just like break down some sets as they're performing it. This being the first of the year with the full band. This was also their 10th time performing at the festival, which is really amazing. They started performing in 1996 was their first time as a band. So the history of Dave Matthews Band at this festival, again, as you mentioned, in New Orleans, the Jazz Fest is such a cultural experience. You know, it's like an 8-day experience. And we were watching on Instagram some of the videos. The weather looked amazing. The vibes were high. Dave was in a t-shirt, And what I think really set the tone here was the fact that they opened with Ants, Sam. This is not a song you typically see as an opener. It's a pretty rare opener. And they go ahead and open it. This was actually, funny enough, Ants is the most played song that they've done at the Jazz Festival.
Yeah,
this was their
I saw that too.
7 times that they've performed Ants, but to have it as an opener, to get the crowd just immediately into it, what does that say about, setting a tone?
We were talking about it, off the podcast, and obviously we're going to dive into it at some point in one of these episodes about openers and closers. But I think as a fan, you get so hyped up for that opening song and you talk about it in the community. What do you think he's opening with? What do you think he's opening with? And I think any song that he opens with, you're obviously hit with all this jubilation and excitement because you're like, Dave's back and like, here we go. And I think Ants in the One Spot really sets the tone for like a really unique set list. And, Dave and the band picked their set list obviously beforehand. And as fans, we're just treated to whatever comes our way. And, the fact that we got 3 different covers, a new one that's never been played. We'll talk about that in a moment. For me, then you throw in a song like Alligator Pie, and I know you're joking that down in Louisiana they eat alligators.
They love their alligators.
That was like a correlation, but I've only heard that song once. You know what I mean? And that's
the 3rd time that they've played it since 2018.
Yeah.
Which, according these stats, also come from the DMB Society and the Dave Matthews Almanac. Gotta shout out them for putting those out there because as a fan, you want to know these stats, and it makes you that much more like, oh my God, I can't believe that's the case. Didn't mean to interrupt, but just had to.
No, absolutely. And when I think of Alligator Pie, I think, when I hear that song on live tracks, I hear him talking about how he's got a daughter named Grace and how he's got Grace is Gone. And a lot of songs are about Grace, and there's never a song for Stella. So I kind of feel like that's like a really unique song, and I really do like Alligator Pie, and it'll be interesting.
It's fun.
It'll be interesting to see if that's a song that they bring back this year, and that song that they start performing at more venues.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we were in Camden, saw Ants early in the set too, and we were kind of taken back because we've been so used to Ants as like a closer or even in the encore, which obviously, and we kind of talked about it, off the podcast. Like when you have Ants to end the show, you just feel nice. Like it's a really nice feeling. Everyone's really into it. But when you have it early in the set, it is also a really unique experience. And they ended up going into so much to say, anyone seen The Bridge and a Too Much Fake, something we also experienced at Camden. We got a Too Much Fake into Pig, which absolutely blew my mind. I literally
it was
almost
wild.
cried. I almost cried having wanting to chase or been chasing Pig, for 15 years and getting it in that experience. I love the idea of a Too Much Fake going into a new cover that they've never performed, which was Word Up by Cameo. It looked fun. Rashawn was getting the crowd going, raise your hands in the air like you don't care, and everyone's just raising their hands. I love that. I thought it was pretty fun. We'll see if that's a cover that will, get throughout this whole tour, but that Too Much Fake into that's just a really, unique way of just kind of keeping you guessing.
And then you look at the covers they did. Thank You, obviously, special one. Let's Dance was a great one last year. I love that they're playing it again. It gets people going. It's a fun one. Everyone knows Let's Dance by David Bowie. And I think going back to Ants as the opener, when you have a song like Ants, as you mentioned, at the end of the night, everyone's kind of going together and everyone walks out of the venue, kind of being like, okay, we're in a good mood. But when you get Ants going and the whole crowd's going early, you've already grabbed their attention.
Yeah.
So that allows for a song like Cameo, Word Up, where everyone's already engaged from that Ants marching, and you're playing it early enough that everyone's already into the vibe of the show.
Yeah.
And when we saw the videos of people with their hands in the air, there wasn't one hand that wasn't in the air.
Right.
So I think something like Ants does set the tone for the rest of that show.
And I do like when Rashawn, is on the mic and like it brings like a, that deeper kind of tone when he like gets in. I just think it like gets the crowd going too. Because everyone loves Rashawn. We love everyone, but when Rashawn's on the mic, that's also super fun. And you think about Ants and So Much to Say is the first two songs, arguably two of his most popular songs in the whole, Dave Matthews discography.
Yeah.
So I think that is super fun. They ended up having 3 covers on the night between Word Up, Let's Dance, and Thank You, which Thank You getting, a first full band performance in 2015, I believe I read. I think that's super fun coming from Jimmy Thing. We've obviously been privy to seeing, the crowd getting Thank You going into So Damn Lucky.
Yes.
As an interpolation, which I think is super fun, but I like the idea of it going from Jimmy Thing into, a full Thank You, because we had a few different interpolations, like Brick House, I think was the most recent.
You sexy motherfucker.
Sexy motherfucker, yeah.
That's my favorite interpolation, or I guess into song that they've done into Jimmy Thing. Thank You. The last time they played it was during the COVID year when they were at the Gorge. So
Wow.
Stefan and Carter weren't at that. So this was the first time the full band's done it in quite some time. And again, technically, we've seen Thank You with the So Damn Lucky interpolation, and I'm not really sure what defines an interpolation and what defines an actual song, but technically, according to the DMB Hub app, I've only seen that song once, Thank You, as its own thing. So, yeah, there's definitely interpolations, and Jimmy Thing is a song where there's so much space where you can create other interpolations. One of my favorite interpolations is at Central Park when he does Buffalo Springfields, For What It's Worth, and he thanks the fire department. We'll probably have talked about it on one of the episodes already. So it's cool when you can do things like that. And again, we'll see if Thank You is something that they want to incorporate more when they do Jimmy Things now.
Yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to that. I'll always take a Thank You. We've had so much fun being a part of that and So Damn Lucky. Definitely would be happy to do that with Jimmy Thing. The set rounds out with Gray Street. And I think overall, when you look at the set, it's a really fun set. It kind of speaks volumes to Dave at a festival. He played a lot of his hits,
Yeah.
And So Much to Say, Gray Street, Jimmy Thing. He had Warehouse, P&P into Rapunzel. There's just a lot of really fun songs. I think it's getting the boys back together. And I think just Dave at a festival, you almost feel and assume that he's going to play some of those hits because, it's not like when he's at Saratoga or Camden and a couple nights and you can play the deep cuts, These are people who are there for 8 days, not just to see Dave, but to see, Pearl Jam and The Roots and Lil Wayne and all the other amazing performances there. So I think it's just, let's get the boys going. Let's get the crowd, into it. Which makes sense why Ants was the opener.
Yeah, and we've seen Dave at a festival in Quebec, and very similar set list. He's gonna play the songs that people know, maybe one or two that are fun, like a Cameo, cover, and other than that, it's songs that aren't gonna be the deepest cuts because he's playing to the masses. It's not a Dave Matthews show at Camden or Saratoga or Alpine.
Right, and I think what's even fun is seeing that even after the show, boys still want to perform. Dave and Jeff, and I'm not sure who else was there, but I saw a video of them playing Fool in the Rain. Maybe you can speak on that. I know you're the one who showed me it. Like, they were just still
the Preservation Hall Band. It's a very small venue, small, kind of very popular band in New Orleans. Obviously, you hear the trumpets and you hear trombones and all that stuff like that, but it only fits about 100 people after the show. So, or in the venue, I should say. So the fact that after the show, you know, Dave and Jeff were like, hey, let's continue the party going on Bourbon Street. I mean, that just speaks for New Orleans. And I think what's great about, you know, like being in a rock band and being like with a band is that you can go to all these different places. And there are some places like New Orleans where some of the local pubs or local bars and you can go to after. And, you know, before Dave started this tour, technically now, he was playing in Augusta right before the Masters.
Right.
So, you know, small little venues like that where, you know, you can just pop up and show up and play like little shows like that is something fun. And Fool in the Rain, you hear all the trumpets and trombones. It was a perfect song for both Dave and Jeff to accompany that band on.
Absolutely. It goes back to just the fact that these guys love to perform. Like, that is what their purpose is on life, and any chance they get. And when you're in an environment like New Orleans and it's the jazz festival and you get, like, you know, that opportunity to maybe do a Fool in the Rain, that's just so fun. Like, and I love that they did that. I think, you know, it's just so exciting that we got a Dave set to talk about right now. His next performance is in May 4th, I believe, at another festival.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really kick off the tour until later in May, where he's really going to start going, you know, weekly. But it's a little tease. We're getting a little tease, a little of that taste of just that Dave flavor. And it's just, I love it, man.
People can start, you know, taking out their patio sets and getting ready because the summer's upon us. Dave is around the corner for everyone who's going to be going to see him at different shows. And right now he's playing some festivals to get you know, the band warmed up. So it's a great time.
The Dave Matthews Band 2025 tour is upon us. And that wraps up this episode. I think it's been just a pleasure talking about this set, and we're looking forward to just covering more sets as this tour progresses.
Absolutely.